Good morning, my dear students. So, I am Manisha Agrawal and I'm from Chanakya Tutorial, where we believe that your goals are our goals. So, today we will be discussing the chapter How Do Organisms Reproduce? I think you might have learned this chapter already, right? But this is the very, very important time where you can revise the chapter with us. So, let's start it. If I talk about this chapter is very, very important for your board exam. It carries almost like 8 to 10 marks. So 8 to 10 marks questions will be asked from this chapter. That is why it is important that you should go through each and every line of this chapter. So starting with the definition of the chapter where they talk about the how do organisms reproduce. So this chapter is nothing but yes about the reproduction, about the plants reproduction, about the animals reproduction, about the humans reproduction, how do they reproduce. So that we will be discussing. So before we discuss the mechanism by which the organisms reproduce, let us understand that why do the organisms reproduce? So why? So why they do that? Why it is important? So it is important because to continue these species. So when the reproduction will happen, then what happen? They can continue the species of their own kind. For example, as a human, the human can continue their species as a human, right? So to continue the species, it is important to undergo this process of the reproduction. So, after all, reproduction is not necessary to maintain the life of an individual, right? So, it is not important that each and every individual has to undergo the reproduction, but yes, definitely, the other processes like the nutrition, respiration, excretion are very, very important part of it. Also, if an individual organism is going to create more individual, a lot of its energy will be spent in the process. And that is why an individual organism wastes energy on the process is does not need to stay alive. So sometimes what happens, we carry the processes which are not important and we just spend the energy. So it is obvious that we notice organisms because we reproduce. Like here you can see in the picture, so many different elephants are there, right? So these elephants, the numbers are increases because of the elephant only, right? So initially the one elephant was there, then two, then maybe four, then six, then eight. So how the numbers were increased? It was increased due to the reproduction process. Now, if anything has extinct from the earth, that is because their own kind was not present on the earth further, like in the case of the dinosaurs. So what happened? Slowly and gradually they were not able to show the reproduction process, and because of that they were extinct now. It is a large number of organisms belonging to a single species that bring them to our notice. So you can see if in one type of the organism itself you can see the so many organisms. Here you can see so many horse are there, fishes are there likewise. But how do we know that two different individual organisms belong to the same species? Let's find out why it is so. So usually we say this because they look similar to each other. So you can see the picture, like, here they are similar, here the fish are similar, here they are similar. So why they look similar? Have you ever thought of it? Like, somehow, sometimes you have the characteristics of your mother and father. Some characteristics are same. Why is it so? So, thus reproducing organisms create new individual that look very much like themselves. So we know very well what is happening in the process of reproduction. They will be creating the organisms which are very similar to themselves. Like these dogs you can see here, cats, kittens you can see here. So they are also same. Why this happens? This happens because the organism creates the exact copies of themselves, and this is what is very, very important for your board exam. So in your board exams they ask this chapter, this topic. From this chapter they ask this topic for almost like 3 marks. So what question comes is like, what is DNA copying, and write the importance of DNA copying. So for that you should know what it is. So what is DNA copying? DNA copying is nothing but is a process where it is a process where a molecule of DNA creates two identical copies. So what they will be doing in this process, the molecules will be creating the two copies of the DNA. And where they will be creating it? They will be creating it inside a reproductive cell. So inside the reproductive cells, they will be doing it. And this process of copying the DNA or creating the exact copy of the DNA is called as a DNA copying. Now, why it is important? It is important so that they can transfer the characteristics to the next generation. And also, with this, the variations can be there. Very important. This is variation means the differences or the changes which are there in the individual. And they will be getting this variation from generation to generation. So that is how it will be working. Then reproduction, as I have mentioned, it creates new individual which look similar like themselves. And why they look similar? Because of their DNA. Again, a 1 marker question. This is for the 1 marks. So in the case of the DNA, what do they ask actually in this thing? They ask you in the 1 mark, like name the information source of protein. So who will be carrying the information related to the source of protein? The answer is the DNA. So DNA is basically, they carries the information source of protein, and because of that only we are similar to our parents. So organism looks similar because the body design are similar and blueprint have to be similar. So if organism is similar, body design is similar. If body design, why it is similar? Because the blueprint is similar. So you might have seen, right? You are going to write the board exams. For writing the board exams, the CBSE will be providing you the blueprint. So on the basis of that exact blueprint, they will be making the paper. Same way, in an individual also, the blueprint will be there, and using that blueprint, the individual will be giving birth to the young ones. So here they are similar. We cannot say them as identical because identical can happen in the case of the asexual where only one parent is involved. In the case of the sexual, we can say they are similar. It means almost kind of same, but not exactly identical. And the answer where it happens in the DNA, in the chromosome part of it. The next topic is the importance of variation. What is variation? Variation means the changes or the differences of in an individual. So generation by generation, some or the other changes will happen, right? Those kind of the changes are called as the variation. So you can see, like, here the different examples are given. So all the examples, whatever are given, have the different colors or the designs, or maybe the length. Some are short, some are dark in color, some are small in color. So why it is so? It is because of the variation. So during the DNA copying, when they copy the DNA, some slight changes happen, and because of that, the variations will be there. The next thing is niche. Niche is basically the population of the organism where they live in a defined place. Like if I talk about the camel, the desert is basically the well-defined place for them. Then fishes, they live in the water. For them, this is a niche for them. So it's a well-defined place where the population of an individual will be living. Now, why they're able to survive? Because the body allows them to to stay there, to survive there. So example, like polar bear, you can see in this picture. So polar bear is well adapted to its arctic environment, as their white fur help them to blend with the snow. You might be knowing, right? So how do they save themselves? They save themselves because of this fur. So since they have fur on their body, because of that, they will be able to blend themselves with the snow. And if anyone want to come and kill, they will not be able to catch hold them because of this kind of the adaptation. And also they have a layer of fat under the skin which help them to stay warm, and because of these characteristics, they are able to survive in that niche or in that place. However, that niche can be changed because of some reasons. Like you can see in this picture, both are little different. This is actually the green, and this is that is becoming dull actually, because of the reasons beyond the control of the organism. So what happens? Sometimes some reasons are also not in our hand. It's beyond our control, and because of them, the place where they live gets changes. So temperature can go up and down, meteorites can hit, as well as the water level can vary. So these are also some of the factors where the variation can be differed. And if this is drastically altered, then population can be wiped out. So if this changes, like, temperature changes or the water level changes happening frequently, then what happen? Then automatically the organism can wipe out from our environment. For example, the Indian pipe plant earlier was photosynthetic due to the presence of chlorophyll. But due to the course of evolution, now what is evolution? Evolution means the slow, gradual kind of the process where the new individual or new species will be forming. So due to this evolution process, what happened? It lost its chlorophyll and became saprophytic. So earlier, because of the presence of the chlorophyll, they were able to do the process of photosynthesis. But later on, due to evolution, what happened? They lost that property of doing the photosynthesis process and they became saprophytic. So that is what the variation, it helped them to survive till date. However, if some variations are present, population can survive. So it's important that the population can, or they should have the variations in them. Example, if there were a population of bacteria living in temperate water, and if the water temperature was increased by global warming, most of them would have died. But few variants resistant to heat would survive and grow further. So what happened if we have the bacteria, and if this bacterias, we are giving them the different temperature, maybe some of them we are giving 20, some of them we are giving 40 degrees, some we are giving 75 degrees. So what happened out of these temperature, some of the bacteria will be able to survive in all the temperature given and some will not be able to survive. So it happens because of the variation, because of the changes what are we provided to them. That's why we can say that variation is thus useful for the survival of species over the time. So over the time, it is important that the variation should occur. Now, two different modes of reproduction are there. The first one is asexual and the second one is asexual. In the case of the asexual, only one parent will be there and the organisms belong to this category. They are simple and the small organisms basically. Whereas in the sexual, two parents will be there as humans, dog, elephant, cat, rat, bat, dogs. All these are what? They are the sexual reproduction modes. Now, starting with the asexual methods, different methods are there: fission, fragmentation, regeneration, budding, vegetative propagation, and spore formation. These are the six different types of the asexual method. And also we have the tissue culture apart from these six types. So starting with the first one, binary fission, which comes under the fission category. So binary fission is basically the part of the fission. And fission means division. So division of an organism, that is called as the fission. This fission is of two types. Fission is of two types, binary fission and the multiple fission. Binary fission and multiple fission. As the name says, binary. Bi means two. So when any individual is divided into two, then we call them as a binary fission. So here the living cells divide into two equal or nearly equal parts. So this is very, very important, this binary fission. Every year in the board exams, they ask a question from this. And what question they ask is, they ask you about the steps. So about the steps of reproduction in amoeba. So what are the different steps of reproduction in amoeba? Or write the different stages of reproduction in amoeba. So here you can see the simple binary fission where the amoeba is there now. They will have the four different things. In the first step, there will be the parent cell, right? In the first step, what do they have? They have the parent cell. In the second step, they will be undergoing the process called as karyokinesis. Karyo is a word which is derived from the word karyon, which means the nucleus. And kinesis means the division. So in the second step, what happened? The division of the nucleus will be happen. Then third step is cytokinesis, where cyto is a word derived from the cyton, which means the cytoplasm. And kinesis is nothing but it means the division. So in this process, what happened? The cytoplasm will be dividing. Ultimately, when these two processes get completed, then here you can see in this part, the constrictions will start appear and they start getting deeper. And because of that, the two daughter cells, two daughter amoeba will be formed. And since the two daughter cells are formed, we say this process as the binary fission. So amoeba is a very good example of this process. Now, second condition, we have the paramecium. So paramecium also, they undergo this process of the binary fission, but here they will be undergoing the transverse section. Transverse means it's nothing but it's the horizontal division they will be undergoing to it. So you can see here, this is a paramecium. This paramecium will be dividing from the center, and then the nucleus the same way. The nucleus will be dividing, the cytoplasm will be dividing, and ultimately at last we will be getting the two paramecium. Then the other example we have is the Leishmania, or we can say the Euglena. So here in them they have the longitudinal division. Longitudinal division means the division which is happen in the vertical way. So you can see this is the Euglena, where slowly and gradually this constriction will appear in the center, and from one Euglena, one Leishmania, we will be getting the two daughter cells. So that is how it will be working. Now, second type of the fission is the multiple fission, where the more than two individuals will be formed after the division. So it is seen in the plasmodium as well as in the amoeba, and when it occurs under the unfavorable conditions. So when the conditions are not favorable during that time, they will be undergoing it. Now, this is the plasmodium. So what happened? The plasmodium, they will have the outer covering, which is called as cyst. This is again a very important question. Name the outer covering of the plasmodium. The answer is cyst. So cyst is the outermost covering of the plasmodium, and it is a kind of the protective layer. So this layer will be protecting the whole plasmodium. So this cyst, under the unfavorable, when conditions are not favorable, what do? They will break down, and almost all the nucleus what are present inside the cell will start coming out. So you can see in this picture, all the nucleus are coming out. Now each and every nucleus will start growing all together individually. So that is how the multiple fission. So you can see more than like so many nucleus are there, almost like 10 to 12 nucleus are there. So here, instead of two, more than two individual will be formed. Then the next process of asexual reproduction, next type is the budding. So as the name itself says, budding, it's nothing the formation of the bud on an individual. So here the example is the yeast, and hydra is also the example. If they ask in the board exam this for 1 mark question actually. So name the two examples where the budding process occur. The answer will be the yeast and the hydra. So for 1 mark, you should not write only one example. You should mention two examples. So yeast and hydra are the examples of it. So it is seen in the yeast, and what happened here, the small outgrowth will be formed from the parent cell. So you can see here, slowly this outgrowth is coming. And once this outgrowth is formed, the nucleus of the parent cell will start moving towards the bud part of it. And then again, the same cytoplasm formation will be there. Cytoplasm will divide, and then ultimately, when the conditions will be under the favorable, the parent and the daughter cells will be getting detached from each other, and then they start growing individually. So a small outgrowth is formed on the parent cell. The nucleus of the parent cell will divide, and one daughter cells migrate into the bud. Then the bud will increase in size, and ultimately the bud separates and grows further. So once they get detached, they will be growing individually without the support of the parent cell. Then the next we have the fragmentation. It is basically happen in the algae. Algae are nothing but they are the aquatic organisms which are present in the water, and they are autotrophic in nature. It means they can prepare their own food. So example, like the Spirogyra. Spirogyra is a kind of the algae. So here it is seen in the multicellular organism with simple body organization. Example, the Spirogyra and Elotrix, they will have that. And on maturation, the fragments will break up into these smaller pieces. This is again a very, very important question for 2 marks. So to explain the process of the fragmentation, how it happens, or they ask you to give the reason that upon maturation, what happens to the Spirogyra. So the only simple answer what you should write, upon maturation, the fragments breaks up into the smaller pieces, or we can say that the Spirogyra fragments will break down into the smaller pieces. These pieces of fragments will grow into the new individual. So that is how it will be working. The next type of the asexual method is the regeneration. So it's nothing but it is the individual. If the individual is cut or broken into many pieces, these pieces grow into the separate individual. So here the example is planaria, and every year they ask the question for 3 marks from this. So they ask you to explain the process, the complete process. They ask you to draw the diagram of regeneration in planaria, or they ask you to define the regeneration. So likewise, 3 mark question they ask from this topic. So that is why this is very, very important topic of this chapter. Now, how does it happen? So you can see this happens because of these specialized cells. Again, a 1 mark question. Last year in the board examination, they asked about this. So why the regeneration happens in the planaria? What type of cells are responsible for it? So answer will be the, either you can write specialized cells or you can write the regenerative cells. So due to the presence of the regenerative cells, or due to the presence of the specialized cells, or due to the presence of pluripotent cells, this regeneration happens in the planaria. So any one word out of these three you can write, either specialized cells or regenerative cells or the pluripotent cells. So what happens? These cells, they will be proliferating. It means they will start multiplying and they will start increasing. And because of that, they start producing the large number of cells. And then slowly and gradually, they will start organizing themselves in a proper sequence. And ultimately, the development of the whole planaria will be there. So you can see one planaria is present here. And in the second case, you can see the center part is available, right? And slowly and gradually, the top part also come, and the down part, the bottom part also has come back. Same way, the other two picture you can see, the top part was there, the down part was missing. But after some time, because of this regenerative cells, the down part also started reflecting back. So this is what the regeneration is. But here, very important, one more question again. Regeneration is not same as the reproduction. Why? So many times we get confused. Regeneration and reproduction both are same, but no. Regeneration and reproduction both are not same. In the case of the regeneration, it is a reconstruction of the entire body from the isolated body cells when the organism body cuts into the pieces. So if the pieces we have, from that pieces only the whole individual is coming out, right? But animals cannot wait to reproduce, right? Therefore regeneration is not the same as reproduction. So in a very simple example, in simple language, I can say that in the regeneration, the cut part will be grown into the new individual. Whether we have the 3 cut part, 3 individual. But in the case of the reproduction, one individual will be waiting for the whole process to get completed, and then only the new individual will be formed. So they do not wait their whole body to cut down and then to form the new individual. And also they do not have the such kind of the regenerative cells to show this process. So that is why both processes are not same. Now here, in the budding case, in the other example of the budding, we have the hydra. Here, they also have the regenerative cells. Because of that, they can show the process of asexual reproduction. So how it happens? It happens due to the repetitive cell division, where it happens in the regenerative cells. So regenerative cells of the hydra, they will be dividing continuously. Cell division will occur at the specific site, and because of that, the outgrowth will be there, the bud will be formed. And once the bud is formed, they will get detached from the parent cell and the new individual will be formed. So that is how it will be working. Now, the next type of the asexual method is the vegetative propagation, where it is nothing but vegetative structures such as the roots, stems, leaves, they will be using to develop into the new plant. Now, here you can see this is the example of the leaf. So, where the vegetative part is what? It's a leaf. So, leaves are the vegetative part of it. Again, a very important question for the 1 mark. They ask you generally the example. So name or write the example where the vegetative propagation happens with the help of the leaf. So answer is the bryophyllum. So you can see on this bryophyllum leaf, what happened? A new buds will be produced on the margin of it. So you can see these are the buds which are present on the notches of the plant. So on the margin of it, the new buds will be produced, and ultimately slowly and gradually these buds will fall down and they start growing individually. So that is how the process happens through in this biophylla. Now this one is about the layering process or grafting process, where you can see this is the layering process, and here this is the grafting process. And in the process of layering, what we will be doing, the stem part of the plant we will be taking and we will be inserting them into the soil. And then slowly and gradually, when we insert it, when we pour the water on daily basis, the the stem of that plant will start coming out of the root. And once the stem come out of the root, we can cut that plant from the root part of it. And once we cut the plant, what happened now? Two plants will be there. The main plant and the second plant is the small plant from which we got the new plant. So that is how from one plant we are getting the two plants. Whereas in the case of the grafting, what we are doing, two two types of the plants of the same species, we are joining them together. For example, if a red rose is there and the pink rose are there, so what we will be doing, we wanted that something different has to become, or maybe due to the improvement in the variety, we will be taking the two different species and we will be joining them together. So we will be joining them together here. Like this is actually not the picture. I'll make it again. So suppose this is one of the stem and here we have the other stem. So what we will be doing, on the first stem we will be actually, with the help of the wicks, we will be sticking that, and slowly and gradually after some days you will be noticing that after some time automatically this will get stuck and starts growing. This is what the grafting is. So on one plant you are actually fixing the other plant of the same species. So example, sugarcane, roses, grapes, they are being used for this process. Now, here also the same thing is given. Here we will be using the layering or the grafting to grow the sugarcane, roses, or the grapes for the agriculture process. Now, what are the advantages? Very, very important now for the 3 marks. So here, for 3 marks, they ask in the board exams, write the advantages of the vegetative propagation. So with the help of propagation, vegetative propagation, plants can bear flowers and fruits earlier than those produced from the seed. So with this method, we can get the flowers and the fruits little earlier as compared from the seed method. Also, we can use to propagate plants that have lost the capacity to produce the seeds. Like example, banana, orange, rose, and jasmine. And third advantage, very important advantage, that we can produce the genetically similar parent plant that can have the all characteristics. So this 3 points for 3 marks need to be written down. Now next type is the spore formation. So spore formation example is a bread mold, which is basically the rhizopus. So here on the hyphae, so these are what this the structure will be like this. So like this they will have. These are what they are called as the hyphae. The upper part is called as the blobe. Blobe is nothing but like, in the doors you will have, to open the doors, you will have a knob like structure. So that is like they have the blobe or the knob also, they say in some of the exams. And inside them, they have these sporangia. And these sporangia, they have the spores. So these spores, when they burst out, the head part, when the blob that it burst out, all these spores will come out and they start growing individually. So that is how it happens with this method. So spores are covered with the thick wall that protect them, and spores eventually develop into the new individual. So until when this spores comes out, and when they come out because of when they have proper amount and sufficient amount of the moisture, they come out, they burst out, and when they burst out, they come out and they start growing individually. And the last type is the plant tissue culture. So whatever we have studied till now, it was automatically it was happening because of the organism or the plants and all. But here in the plant tissue culture, we will be doing it in the laboratories, or in the separate area we will be doing it. So tissue culture, here new plants grow by removing tissue or separating cells from the growing tip of the plant. Now why they are taking the growing tip? Because in the growing tip only they will have the dividing cells. So dividing cells are present in the growing tip, so that is why they will be taking the tip of a plant. And it also contains the meristematic tissue. Meristematic tissues are those tissues which have the capability to divide. That is why they will be taking the growing tip. Now here the cells are placed in artificial medium. So they can take any artificial medium, they will be placing it there. And after some time, they will be dividing rapidly and they form a small group of cells which we called as a callus. So you can see there is a they have taken the artificial medium and they have kept the cell and small slowly and gradually they have converted into the callus group of the cell. Now this callus is transferred to the another medium that contain the hormone for the growth and differentiation. So once the callus is being formed, they will be transferring into the other medium, which has what? It has the hormones, and ultimately they will start growing. So hormones like the auxin and gibberellin can be used for this method. So the plantlet will be placed in the soil. So once they are getting this plantlet, what they will be doing, they will be placing in the soil. And ultimately through this method now, mature plants we can get. So as you can see in this picture, the mature plants are there. They are grown through this method. So using this tissue culture, many plants can be grown from one parent in disease-free condition. So what happened? Since artificially we are doing, we can control that setup, especially that isolated setup we can control, and accordingly, whatever the plant will be from will be disease-free. So tissue culture is basically commonly used for the ornamental plants. So generally you might have seen in the big gardens, parks, zoos and all, such kind of the decoration might happen. That are the what? They are the ornamental plants. Now, coming to the next part of it is the sexual reproduction, where two parents will be involved. Like in humans also, what we do is we basically undergo the sexual reproduction process. So two parents will be involved. One will be the male, other will be the female. So here two parents will be involved. One will be the male and the other will be the female. The male gamete, they will have the germ cells, which are called as germs are called as the sex cells, which are what? They are the sperms. And they are basically, these sperms are basically small and motile. Motile means they can move. Whereas in the female, the ova, or we say it as the egg, is the part which will be containing or they store the food. So if they ask you the difference between the male gamete and the female gamete, you should write that the male gamete is the sperm, the female gamete is the ova. And male gamete, they are smaller and motile, whereas the female gamete, they are larger and they are immotile, and also they contain, they store food. And these two, male and female gamete, they will be fusing together to form the unicellular zygote. So that is how the fertilization will be happening. But now, why it is important? Why we have to, undergo the process of sexual reproduction? So since there is fusion of two germ cells from two different individual, variations are produced. So to form the variation, it is important that we should undergo. So male will be there, female will be there. Both will have the different characteristics, right? So when they come closer, when the fertilization happens between them, then ultimately due to DNA copying, what happened? A small variation will be there. So due to this variation, it gives rise to the variety and the diversity. And because of that, the organism will be able to survive and adapt in the changing environment. And it also helps to prevent the complete extinction of the animals in the plant species. Now, here, one more question comes, like, they will be asking you which one is better, which will have the better chances of survival, the asexual individual or the sexual individual. So this they have asked 2 years back for the 3 marks. Which one will have the better chance of survival, asexual or sexual? The answer is the sexual. Why the sexual organism will have the better chances? Because of the variation. Here they will have the two individual, and these two individual will produce a variation, and variation will make them to survive in a better chances conditions. So that is why. Whereas in the case of asexual, only one individual are there, right? So because of that, no variations will be there. And since no variation, then no survival will be there. So this is the answer for that. Then coming to the next one is the plant. So in the plants, there will be the different vegetative organ, and then reproductive organ also will be there. Vegetative organs are like the leaves, stems, roots, and reproductive organ, which help for the reproduction process, which is basically the flower. Now, here again, a very, very important part of it for your board examination. Learn this slide as such. They do ask different varieties of questions from this part. The first thing, I ask you to draw the longitudinal section of a flower. The second thing, what do they do is, most of the time in the board examination, they will be giving you in the name of the following form. So name the following and then you should answer. Third thing, what do they give you? They give you some statements and they ask you to identify the part or to label the part in the given diagram. So it's important that you should learn this diagram with the parts and the functions also. So these are the sepals are basically green color parts. They protect the flower in the bird condition and also they perform the function of photosynthesis. Then the next part are the petals. They are the colorful and larger in size and they protect the inner parts of the flower and also they will be attracting the insect. Then coming to the major part of it are the anther and filament, which together are the male reproductive part called as a stamen. So stamen is a male reproductive part which has the anther and filament. So this anther has a gamete called as the pollen grains. They are yellowish in color. So how they ask you the question in the board exam? They will be saying that name the part which contains the pollen grain. So now tell me the answer. What will be the answer? The answer will be the anther. So the anther will contain the pollen grains. And sometimes they say you name the part which is yellowish in color. Then the answer is the pollen grain. Pollen grain is the part which is yellow in color. Then the female part is the petal, or it is also called as the carpel, which has three major parts: stigma, style, and ovary. Stigma is a terminal part, which is basically sticky. Center is a middle elongated part, which is the style. And this style will help in connecting the stigma with the ovary. And ovary is nothing but the swollen bottom part. So directly they can give you these three lines and they the anther. You can see the top part is the anther. Here, every pollen grains have two male gametes. Very, very important. They do not have one. They have actually, the pollen grain have the two male gametes. And they are the bilobe structure. See, like this, they are. These anthers, they are like this, bilobe. They have the two lobe. This is the first lobe. This is second lobe. That is why we call them as a bilobe structure. And the down part is nothing, but it is the filament like this. So they will have the filament like this. Now, how the process it happens in them, let's discuss that. So here, when we talk about the female part, they will have the axon, which is the female gamete. Then they will have the nucleus also. And then inside the ovary, these all things will be present. Now, coming to the next part of it are the flowers. Two types of the flowers are there, unisexual and bisexual. Uni, as the name says, uni means one, and here bi means two. So in the case of the unisexual, either they will have the male part or either they will have the female part. Whereas in the case of the bisexual, they will have the both in the same flower, which is the male and the female part, both will be in the same flower. Now, again, an important part for your board examination, they ask you the examples of it. So I'll tell you the shortcut here. The shortcut to learn this is UPW and to learn this is BHM. Here, the U stands for the unisexual, P stands for the papaya, and W stands for the watermelon. So if you learn this word UPW, easily you can write the two examples of unisexual flowers. Same way here, B stands for the bisexual, H stands for the hibiscus, and the M stands for the mustard. So BHM. So these are the shortcut for your exam. Learn this, children, thoroughly. UPW, PHM. So say with me, UPW, PHM. All right. Now, moving to the process, how it happens. So through the pollination, basically the transfer of the pollen grains will be there from the anther to the stigma. And if they transfer to the same flower, then it is called as self-pollination. And if they transfer from one flower to the other flower of the another plant of the same species, then it is called as the cross-pollination. So if it is same flower, then same plant, then it is self, and if it is different, one flower to the other flower of the other plant of the same species, then it is cross-pollination. And how it can occur? It can occur because of the wind, because of the insects, because of the other agents also, right? Okay, now moving to the next one is these pollen grains, since they are sticky in nature, they will be sticking to the insect and they will be passing it from one to the other part of the plant. All right. Okay. So here, in the insects, they will have, the pollen grains will stick to the wings, legs, proboscis of the insects, and through that they will be transferring, as you can see in the picture also. Whereas the other agents can be water, they can be the squirrels, they can be the bat, through them they will be getting transferred from one to the other place. That is how they will be doing it. Now, very important part, how it happens basically. So after the pollination, the next step is the fertilization. So once the pollination is done, once the anther is being reached to the female part, now the next process which should happen is the fertilization. So as already mentioned, there will be two male gametes and one female gamete. So one sperm nucleus will fuse with the one egg cell nucleus. So that is what we called as the fertilization. So one male gamete will fuse with the one female gamete. So which is what the fertilization. Whereas the other nucleus or other male gamete will fertilize with the two polar nuclei. So in the center, the two polar nuclei will be there where they fertilize. And this is what we called as triple fusion. Very, very important, children, this is. So fertilization where one male gamete will fuse with the one female gamete, whereas in the case of the triple fusion, the one male gamete, they will be fusing with the two polar nuclei. And since three cells fuse together, this process is called as a triple fusion. And this whole thing is called as double fertilization. The whole process is called as double fertilization. Why it is called as double fertilization? Because twice the fertilization is happening. Once the fertilization is happening between the male gamete and the female gamete, whereas second time, the second male gamete is fusing with the two polar nuclei. So twice the fertilization is happening. That is why the whole process is called as the double fertilization. Very, very important for your 5-mark question. So generally they will be asking you, and what kind of question they give you? They ask you to write trace the event which happens in the flower. So all the event you should write, starting from the male and female, then to the pollination, then to the fertilization, then about these both the fertilization. So all these things need to be mentioned. So trace means nothing, but it means the path, how the process happens, that path you should write. Then after fertilization, the flower has served its purpose, where the remaining part, the petals, the style, stigma, they will generally fall off and they become dry. Whereas, one more thing, what happened after the reproduction, the ovary will get converted into the fruit and the ovule will get converted into the seed. Now, this is 2-marker question for your board exam. Here, most of us do the mistake. I'll tell you the trick. What is the trick? Here in the ovary R comes, right? In the fruit also R comes, right? So learn like that. Ovary R is there. That is why the answer will be fruit. Then in the ovule E is there. In the seed E is there, right? So that is how the answer will be seed. So ovary will be converted into the fruit and the ovule will get converted into the seed after this whole process. And that is why seed contains a future plant or the embryo with it. So this embryo then develop into seedling under the appropriate condition, and this whole process is called as the germination. So that is how we have completed the half part of the chapter, which is about the asexual reproduction and also about the sexual reproduction in the flowering plants. Now let's begin with the second half of it, is about the reproduction in the humans, which is again an important part of it. And generally they ask you about the male-female reproductive system, about the contraceptive methods also. Let's see now one by one about all these things. So you can see in the picture, right? Like from a small kid to a growing stage we will be, right? So age is nothing from, it's a kind of the process when the individual year by year is, becoming adult. So all of us during that time will have the body changes as we become older, right? This change occurs in various phases, which are called as the growth phase. So some we were like 2 years old, 3 years old, four, now almost I think I'm 32, 33. So these are what they are, the we in our body changes that have been happened right during that time. So such kind of the changes, what are the changes which happens and why it happens, actually why it is required to have it. So let us learn about the first stage of growth and the changes that occurs in the boys and girls. Here, rate of growth. So physical growth will be there, which is basically the growth of bones or the muscles, then which happens generally in the boys, right? Their muscles will be very, very, growing at a faster rate. The bones also growth will be there. Whereas in the girls, increase in the height, increase in the weight, and they acquire and then lose the milk teeth and then again acquire the new ones. So not only in the girls, in the boys also this changes happens, right? Now in the boys also the same change happens. Increase in the height, increase in the weight. They also acquire the uh, teeth and then they lose the milk teeth and they acquire the new one again. So that is how the changes will be happening. Then stage, what are the childhood stage will be there? Where the secondary stage of growth will be occurring in the male and female. These secondary changes are very, very important, children, for the reproduction process to happen in the body. So 11 to the age of 18 in girls, whereas 21 in boys, these changes generally occur where the body will have the drastic change in both girls and the boys. So rate of growth, body is growing to its adult size. The maturation of the reproductive tissues will also happen in the body. So you can see a small child is there, and ultimately, after the growth, the child has been changed into the complete individual, complete adult. Whereas in the girls, what are the changes they will be finding out? That hairs will start growing under the armpit in the genital. Genital area means the private area between the thighs, legs, and the arms. Whereas the genital area will become darker. Now, why it becomes darker? It becomes because of the pigment, which is called as the melanin. So skin becomes oily, and because of that oil present in them, they can get the pimples or the acne. So these are the changes they will be getting certainly during this time. And also the breast size will begin to increase. So you can, generally in the starting when the girl is small, then you cannot find the difference, you cannot differentiate between the boys and the girls, but slowly and gradually we are able to find the differences. It is because the breast size of the females will start developing. Then darkening of the skin due to darkening of the skin of the nipples at the tip of the breast due to the melanin. And also they start menstruate, it basically means in their body the menstrual cycle generally start occurring. Generally we call that it as in our daily life as a period. So the girls will undergo this periods problem where the loss of blood will be there from the uterine wall of the female. Now, coming to the changes in the boys, they will also have the hair grows in the armpit. They will have the genital hair growth. So here in the private area, which we call as pubic hair, will start growing in them, and all over the legs, in the legs also, hands also, the hair will start growing in them. Then their genital area also becomes darker. The skin also becomes oily, and then they can develop the pimples. Then voice begins to crack, and also very important, the penis will enlarge and get red. So it start ejaculating. So it means that the boys are ready to undergo the process of reproduction. So here their body is perfectly formed. Now, the stage that is called as the puberty stage, where the both boys and girls undergo the sexual or they attend the sexual maturity. So when they get these all kind of the functions in their body or changes in their body, that particular point is basically the puberty. So depends upon person to person, depends upon child to child. Sometimes it is maybe some 14 years old boys will get it, sometimes it is 15. So it depends upon child to child. So puberty is characterized by the frequent emotional shift. So that is why you might have noticed in yourself also sometimes, you will be very happy and immediately if someone says something to you, you immediately starts, shouting, yelling and all. So because of the changes which happens in your body, and these changes happens due to the presence of the hormones. All right. Then during this time also the physical maturation of the reproductive system also start changing. So the private part also will have some or the other definitely changes present in them. Then age 18 onwards in girls and 21 onwards in boys, they are completely ready for the process of reproduction where they can understand the things in a better way. So body is physically ready to reproduce, and it happens by two individuals joining their body together for internal transfer of the germ cell or fusion. So after this age, after this adolescence or puberty age, what happened? The body of the male and female is ready to join together to so as to fuse the germ cells. Germ cells are nothing but as I already told you, they are the sex cells. So during this process, they will be fusing together. So transfer of the sperm from the body of male to the body of female is what? It's the reproduction process where the fertilization will happen. Then the next one, the adults will be there. Now, the very important topic is the male reproductive system. Very, very, very important. 1 year they ask about the male part. The second year they ask about the female part. So every year these both male and female, any one out of these two will be coming. So definitely with diagram, with the parts and their function, you should know this for 3 marks question. So male reproductive part consists of the portion which produce the germ cells and the other portion that deliver the germ cells. So here they will be producing the germ cells which are the sperm, and through the remaining part here, this part, they will be transferring it to the site of the fertilization. Clear? So let's see what are the different parts present in them. So the formation of germ cell or sperms, they will be taking place in testes. Very important part. So write the function of the testes. In the board examination, they ask this frequently. So the function of the testes is to produce the germ cell called as a sperm. The second function is, was the first function. Now second function is they produce a hormone called as testosterone. So learn this very well, children. T-E-S, test, T-O-S-T-E-R-O-N-E, ron. Okay. So these are the two different functions of the testes. One is to produce sperm cells, and the second one is to produce a hormone called as a testosterone. Now these testosterone, they will regulate the formation of the sperm, and also they bring out the changes which you can see, in the boys at the time of the puberty. Then again, a very important question: why this is located in the scrotum? So you might have seen in the diagrams of the book that these testes are located outside the abdominal cavity in a bag called a scrotum. So they have a bag called as scrotum. So scrotum is nothing but they are the bag where the testes are produced. Now, why they are located outside? Because sperm formation requires a lower temperature than the normal body temperature. Very, very important question. So if in the board examination they ask you why it is located outside, then answer should be very clear that sperm formation requires a lower body temperature than the normal body temperature, and hence they are kept in a bag called as scrotum outside the abdominal cavity. I hope children, am I clear till here? Let's go to the next one now. Penis. So it is not penis, children. It is the penis, okay? So penis is a portion of the reproductive system that delivers the sperm to the site of fertilization. So if I talk about the whole body of the male, this secondary part, which is the penis, is the movable part where the men can move this, or they can insert this into the female part. So through this penis only, they will be delivering the sperm to the site of the fertilization. And also because of that, they will add the secretion so that the sperms are now a fluid, which makes their transport easier and they can provide the nutrition. So because of that, the nutrition also can be provided to the sperms. Now, what are sperms? Sperms, they have the 3 parts. The head, which contains the genetic material, which is basically DNA. Then the tail we have. Then here we have so head and the tail we have. Now this, what happened when they, move inside the egg of the female, only this head part will be allowed to go inside. The remaining part, the center part, the middle part, and as well as the tail will be left out. So this tail just help them to swim in the medium of the female. Fine. So when they are traveling in the female body, this tail will be help them to swim. So this is an important question, that why do they have the tail? So the tail will help them to move towards the female germ cells. And this head contain, if they ask in the board exam, which part contain the genetic material, the answer is the head. And that is why only the head part will be reaching inside the egg of the female. And because of that, the character of the father will be passed into the egg. Now coming to the female reproductive part, they are made in the ovaries, and they're also responsible for production of the hormones. So when a girl is born, the ovaries, they already contain thousands of immature eggs. So immediately when they are born, they themselves, they had already, so many immature eggs. This diagram is very, very important, children. You should learn this diagram with the correct labeling. Now, once they start reaching to the puberty, some of these start maturing, and one egg is produced every month by one of the ovaries. So what happens? This one egg will be produced every month by one of the ovaries. So that is how they will be working. And also they have a part in the center, as you can see in this picture, they have a part called as the uterus. So here this part is called as uterus, and this uterus is also called as womb. So that is why, you might have heard, we will be saying the mother is carrying the baby in the womb. Womb is nothing but it's a uterus. All right. So again, an important part for your board examination. And also here they ask you this part also, that name the place where the fertilization happens between the male and the female gamete. The answer is the fallopian tube or the oviduct. And the other question they ask you to write the other name of the oviduct, which is a fallopian tube. Fine. So these are the small questions which are really important for your board examination. So make sure that you are thorough with them. Now, there are two oviducts. One is this one, the second one is this one, which unite into an elastic bag called as a uterus. So these two oviduct, what do? They can join together here in the center, where in the uterus part of the female reproductive system. Then this uterus opens into the vagina through the cervix. So if you see this picture, what do they have? They have the two other different parts also, which are the vagina and cervix. So this is a vagina. Through this part, the sperms will be entering, and this sperms will be reaching to the cervix. And from cervix, they go to the other parts of the female reproductive system. So that is how the sexual intercourse will be happening between the male and the female reproductive people. So the sperm enters through the vaginal passage during sexual intercourse, where the act of reproduction will start. Then they travel upwards and they reach the oviduct. And why they have to reach the oviduct? They have to reach the oviduct for the fertilization process. Am I clear, children? I hope I'm clear. Okay. Then once the fertilization is over, then the zygote will be formed, and this zygote will get implanted in the lining of the uterus. Implanted is nothing but on the wall of the uterus, they will start, making space for themselves. So this zygote will come here in the uterus, and they start forming the space. They start, getting their own space. And then they start dividing. And once they start dividing, they form the embryo. And slowly this embryo will divide and they form the fetus. That is how you have heard it, right? Almost 9 months the female will be taking to complete this whole process, which is almost like 270 days. So the attachment of the fertilized egg or zygote to the wall of womb at the start of the pregnancy. So this is how the pregnancy journey will be starting. Now, this is the development how, as I have already told you, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, and 9 months. These are the changes which will be happening, and the size also of the fetus will be developing like this. Now, hence the uterus will prepare itself every month to receive the nurture of the growing embryo. So whatever basically the mother is actually, taking into the body through the placenta, it will be reaching to the child basically. So that is how, we say that the mother and the child, they are connected together. So how they are connected together? They are connected together because they have a disc-like structure called as placenta. And also through this umbilical cord, they will be passing the food, or they will be passing the child, they will be producing the waste material. So they will be passing that waste material through the umbilical cord into the surroundings, right? So that is how it will be happening. But if in case the fertilization does not happen, because certain reasons are there where it is not important that after sexual intercourse the female can conceive. If they are not conceived, then in that case, what happened? The menstrual cycle will be there, where whatever the egg they have released in 1 month, they will go and they will, if not fertilized, then the layer of this uterus, you can see this layer, right? Which is we called as a uterine wall. So this uterine wall get actually thick, and it gets so thick that after some time it starts shedding off its layer. So the layer will start shedding off, and because of this shedding process, shedding of that uterine wall, the blood starts coming out. And in few days, slowly and gradually, again the layer will start reforming. And that is how, these periods of menstrual cycle will be there for somewhere 7 days in a female. It depends upon female to female also. So this is what the menstrual cycle. Then the embryo, they gets the nourishment or the nutrition from the mother's blood with the help of the tissue called as placenta, and it is disc which is embedded in the uterine wall. This is very, very, very important, children, for your 3-mark question. All right. So what are placenta? What is the function of placenta? So, and what does the placenta contain? They contain the villi. Now, what is the function of these villis? These villis, basically, they are finger-like projection, and they will be increasing the surface area. What do? They increase the surface area for the absorption of the food, so that the more food can be absorbed, or the more things can be taken by the infant. That is why these villis are important. So they are present where? In the placenta, so as to take the more things there. Okay. Now on the mother sides are the blood spaces which surround the belly, and they will be providing a larger surface area for the glucose and oxygen to pass from the mother to the embryo, as already mentioned there. Okay. Then also the waste material has to go out. So what kind of the waste material they have to be removed? The CO2. So the infant will be removing the CO2, and through this release only it goes out into the blood of that mother. So this development of the child will be taking almost 9 months time. Then child is born as a result of the rhythmic contraction of the muscle in the uterus. So when you might have heard, right, so many times, in like during the 9-month time, or some nowadays it is like, very common that during the 8-month time itself, the contraction of this uterus will start developing. So because of that contraction in the uterus muscle, what happens? Slowly and gradually the child will come out. But this is not so easy process how it depicts. Like this can be actually happen naturally, but if in most of the cases nowadays it does not happen naturally. So that is why the doctor has to, undergo the operation for taking out the baby outside. And because of that operation, the child will be coming out not through the uterus, but yes, through a layer of the through the layer which is present above the uterus. They will be cutting that layer, almost like 7 layers of skin is present. They will be cutting all those 7 layers, and then the child will be coming out. So what happens now if the egg is not fertilized? If the egg is not fertilized, it lives for about 1 day. And then the linings will become, the uterus lining will become thick and spongy, and then the blood starts coming out. So slowly, see, you can see this layer, slowly this layer will shed off, and the blood will start coming out through the vagina as the blood and the mucus. So this is what every month will be happening, which is we called as a menstruation, and almost 2 to 8 days, the female will be undergoing this process. Now, again, a reproductive health, a very important topic. Here, 2 types of questions they ask you. The first thing is about the contraception. What do you mean by contraception or contraceptive methods? And second thing, what they ask is about the case-based question, actually. Case-based question they give you, where they will be giving a scenario and they will be asking you to write the answer. Like scenario can be anything, like in a village in a family, there was a woman who actually was supposed to give a birth to the child, but ultimately they were not ready to accept the child, and they killed that baby girl. So they're like that, they will be giving the paragraph, and on the basis of the paragraph they will be asking a certain question. So they can ask you, like, is it good to kill the girl child? If it is not, then why it was done, and what can be done, to prevent the pregnancy if it is continuously happening. So that is how these things will be correlated in this part. So reproductive health is basically kind of the healthy reproduction which should happen between the male and the female, because of which the mental pressure should not be there. And during this process, like during the reproduction process, what happens, sometimes the disease also get transmitted. So we have to make sure that reproduction is happening, but the disease transmission should not be there from male to the female or from female to the male. So that is why we have the reproductive health. So some diseases are there which actually transfer due to sexual contact with an infected person, like the gonorrhea, syphilis, AIDS, and warts. Very, very important. These are. They ask you two examples. Two examples for the bacterial disease, which is gonorrhea and the syphilis, and two examples for the viral disease, which are the AIDS and the warts. So very, very important, children. They have asked, I think, almost 3 to 4 years continuously, and chances are there that this year also they will be asking the examples of the bacterial and viral disease. But the question comes, how we can prevent the transmission of such diseases during the sexual act? So here the answer comes. So by using the barriers, some barriers should be there, because of which the sperm should not be allowed to pass into the female body, or maybe from the female body it should not be passed, like, the mucus should not be passed into the male body. So the first thing are the condoms. So you might have seen in the television, so many ads will be there regarding this condom. The government, they will be selling it free of cost, because they also want to control the population, right? Because it is moving so faster. So using a covering called a condom for the penis during the sex will help them to prevent the transmission of many of the infection to some extent. So 99% so 99% are there, like, due to this condoms, the disease does not spread. But rare of the rare chances, sometimes what happens, during the sexual intercourse time, this condom can have the hole also. Because of that, the sperm can be passed. But yes, 99% it is safe. Then the sexual act always has a potential lead to the pregnancy. So if a person is using a healthy thing, then definitely the pregnancy can also be healthy. So pregnancy will make major demand on the body and the mind of the women. So during this pregnancy time, there will be different kind of the effects on the body of female, such as the weakness will be there, nausea will be there, stress will be there, change in the emotions will be there. So because of that, sometimes she will not be ready to accept the things, right? So the very important part for this is, like, mentally the female should be ready for that. And once female is ready for the reproduction process, then the second thing is that male also should be ready, because both have to together actually undergo this process. Therefore, many ways have been advised or devised to avoid the pregnancy, and such methods are called as the contraceptive methods. So they have asked this question, the board exam, what is the other name of the contraceptive methods? The answer is birth control. So the other name of the contraceptive method is the birth control. So these contraceptive methods have numbers of categories based on their approach. So the different types are there, these contraceptive methods. So let us discuss now these, what are the different types of it. One is the barrier method, where the sperms will not be allowed to reach the egg, where the condoms are there for the female and the male also. So in the male, condoms will be used so that to prevent from the STDs, whereas in the female, it will be used in the diaphragm so that the entry of the sperm can be not allowed there. So it will be act as a barrier there. Now the second one is the change in the hormonal balance of the body. So generally what happens, like, maybe by chance the female and the male had the sexual intercourse. So during that time, they were not mentally prepared, maybe, and but they have undergone the sexual intercourse. So if they want to avoid that, what they can do, they can take the oral pills. You might have seen the advertisement also in the TV, right? So this oral pills will be helping. This has to be taken within 72 hours of the fertilization. Like, once they have the sexual intercourse, so within the 72 hours of it, they have to take it. And through this, the process of the fertilization will be stopped automatically. But yeah, certainly, see children, this process, this oral pills have very, very adverse effect on the health of the females. Sometimes they will be getting a lot of acne or the pimple because of this high dose of the oral pill, and sometimes they will be getting some of the other diseases. Sometimes there will be increase in the weight. So a person should be very, very careful while taking these oral pills. So that is how the hormonal balances can be changed by taking this oral pill. So it has a side effect, as I already told you. And the other one is using the copper T. And this is called as the intrauterine contraceptive device. Again, a very important question this is. First of all, here they can ask you write the full form of IUCD. So it is intrauterine contraceptive device. This is also called as CU, copper. You might have learned the element, right? The copper and then capital T, copper T. So why we say it as a copper T? Because you can see in this picture, the shape is in the T form and it is made up of the copper. That is why it is called as a copper T. So this copper T is actually inserted in the uterus of the female, as you can see in this picture, right? It has been inserted in the uterus. So this can prevent the fertilization definitely, but it does not prevent the disease. So that is why copper T can prevent fertilization, but cannot prevent the disease. So we have to be very careful while using this copper T, because it can, it can create some kind of the disturbance in the body of the female. While sitting, while sleeping, they might feel the presence of something, in the body. So that's why every time whenever they sit, they sleep, they have the pain. Then very, very important part for your board examination, the surgical method, where one part will be blocked, one part from the male or maybe from the female will be blocked, and because of that, the fertilization will not be happening. Such kind of methods are called as surgical method. In the surgical method, in the males, it is called as vasectomy, where it is a removal of a small portion of the vas deferens. So vas deferens portion will be like this. You can see in this picture. So the vas deferens is a tube which will be basically passing the sperm. So what the doctors will be doing, they will be cutting this part and tying it. So if the vas deferens in the male is blocked, and sperm transfer will be prevented and fertilization will not take place. And hence, since vas deferens part they have cut it, this is called as vasectomy. The same way in the female, it is called as tuberctomy. So in the male, they have cut the part called as vas deferens. In the female, they will be cutting the part called as fallopian tube and they will be tying it. These two are very, very important for your board examination. Fine. So if the fallopian tube in the female is blocked, the egg will not be able to reach the uterus and hence the fertilization will not take place. So these surgical methods are safe in long run. Surgery itself can cause infection and some other problem if not performed properly. So see children, like be it the barrier method, be it the surgical method, be it the chemical method, all the methods have some or the other kind of the disadvantage also. That is why a person who is actually using such methods have to be very, very careful. They have to make sure that whatever they're using should be free from the infections and all. So surgery can also be used for removal of unwanted pregnancy, which is we called as abortions. And such surgeries may be misused by people who do not want a particular child. So this is how they will be asking the competency-based question, where if the person get to know that the child is girl child, they will be aborting the child, which we call as the female infanticides. For a healthy society, female male sex ratio must be maintained. And because of reckless female feticides, child sex ratio is declining. So since people, they are killing the female, and because of that the ratio of the female is decreasing. But now what happened, the government, they have banned to know the gender of the child. So no one is allowed, and no doctor is even allowed to to inform the parent that the child, before the delivery, they should not inform the parent that the child is a girl or a boy. So they cannot use any sorts to know that. So it's banned to know the sex of the child. So prenatal sex determination has been prohibited by the law. So if anyone, prenatal sex determination means to identify the sex of the child before the delivering of the child, right? So in our India, it is being banned, but yeah, most of the countries, foreign countries, they are allowing it. So that is how, we have to complete the whole process of the reproduction, and also we should have the healthy and the safe reproduction throughout our life. I hope, children, I'm like, I'm clear with all this thing, right? So that is how this chapter, how do organisms reproduce, is very, very, very important for your board examination. So make sure, if you have any doubt or any concern, you can just drop your message in the chat box. We will be clearing all your doubts, all right? So next time, we will be going to the next chapter, where we will be discussing so many important topics for your board examination. And also, side by side, we will be discussing the PYQs and also the important question what they have asked in the previous years, right? So stay tuned, stay connected with Chanakya tutorials. So see you soon. Bye bye.